Now, I organised earlier today to catch up with former Labor frontbencher Joel Fitzgibbon. I wanted to talk to him about climate change and leadership issues, but of course I started off on this issue. Joel Fitzgibbon is a former Defence Minister. Joel Fitzgibbon, thanks for joining us again. First up, as a former Defence Minister, have you been shocked by what we've found out about these alleged war crimes and I suppose the culture and the chain of command that has been identified by the Australian Defence Force Chief as well?
I've no doubt, Chris, all Australians will be shocked and disappointed, and of course all those who have been accused of effectively summary executions will need to face the judicial process and face the music if they are found guilty of these terrible alleged acts. But at the same time, I'm very keen for the process not only to clean the show up and to deal with that culture, but to ensure that not all of our Special Forces soldiers are coloured with the same brush, are caught up in this. This is obviously a culture amongst the minority, and the overwhelming majority of our Special Forces soldiers are courageous Australians who put their lives on the line for their country, and our respect for them and our admiration has to be maintained. But secondly, I need to say that culture comes from the top, and there's plenty of responsibility to go around here, right up the chain of the command and right into the national security of the Cabinet Committee. Vague strategic objectives, the regular release of prisoners, Special Forces soldiers who had put their lives on the line to capture, and many other issues, including the battle with an enemy, which plays to no rules whatsoever. This has been hard on our Special Forces soldiers, and I've no doubt that played into the development of that culture. And again, they need to face the consequences of all that. But our respect and admiration of our Special Forces needs to be protected and maintained.
Yeah, it's a shocking situation, but we've got to allow these processes to play out. Now, the reason I asked you on, as the former resources spokesperson for the Labor Party, you resigned that front bench spot just recently, but the New South Wales Labor leader, Jody McKay, has come out and said you have a point when you criticise federal Labor's preoccupation with climate action, I suppose, at the expense of jobs and industries in the regions.
Of course, Chris, I welcome Jody McKay's intervention. I believe that within the party and within the broader Labor movement, there is a growing realisation that we have not been sufficiently focusing on our traditional base. Those people who go out in the blue collar or high beers on a daily basis, doing a job that is critical to our economy and therefore to the future of our nation. We've spent too much time talking about climate change, as important as it is. And I remind you, Chris, I support meaningful action on climate change, but I support an inclusive approach to the matter, to the objective, and one which does not leave those who work amongst our traditional base behind.
So how can Jody McKay, as the New South Wales Labor leader, see this, but Anthony Albanese, her fellow New South Wales Labor MP and the national leader, not see it?
Well, look, Jody McKay is a creature of the Hunter Valley. I know she said today that she's familiar with the coal mining industry, the power generation industry, the manufacturing plants that run off them, the port of Newcastle, which of course is so critical to the regional economy. Jody came to a coal mine with me soon after the last federal election in the Upper Hunter, and I welcomed that. She's been to the coalface. She understands the issues. She understands the important work our coal miners do and how proud they are of that work. And therefore, I find it unsurprising that she'd be out there talking about them and supporting them. But not only coal miners, of course, oil and gas workers, abattoir workers, those who work in our manufacturing plants more generally. These are the reason the Labor Party, these people are the reason the Labor Party was born, and we need to continue to send a very strong message to them. We respect what they do, we support what they do, and they are entitled to be very proud of what they do.
Joel Fitzgibbon, you're the national convener of the Right faction, which is not Albanese's faction, not Anthony Albanese's faction, but has been very instrumental in supporting him as leader. Do you maintain that role and that support for Anthony Albanese?
I do, Chris, but it's not a role I intend to continue to work in. I've been the factional convener now for more than a decade, and I'm very confident most people who are close to these things would say I've done a very, very good job there. But I think I don't want to be seen. So you're going to stand down? Well, I need to consult my colleagues, but I don't want to any longer be talked about as a faction leader. I want to be talked about as a policy leader. And I want to spend the rest of my time in Parliament absolutely focusing on the policies and the narratives, which I think are critical to the people who we've traditionally represented, but also which are critical to the election of a Labor government. Of course, personal security, job security, making sure people have a future in work, ensuring that they are confident about being able to pay the mortgage and to provide for their children, making sure they have access to affordable health care and equal opportunity in education, and of course providing for our retireds, both in income terms and aged care, provision of aged care facilities. These are all the things that I want to be talking about, rather than giving any of my time to factional issues. And of course, I think there's an opportunity here for us to get more women involved in these factional positions. I think the New South Wales Right in particular has good, strong women and strong representation of women in its faction. But I think we need to get more women involved in the machinations of politics so that women have a louder voice within the Federal Parliamentary Labor Party.
Fascinating development, you stepping down from that factional role. That sounds a hell of a lot like a policy speech. Thanks for joining us, Joel Fitzgibbon. I look forward to talking to you again.
A pleasure, Chris.